usually you're on it.
I am typically on it. And, with the holidays coming up, trying to get everything together, we are extra
Mhm.
on it.
Yeah.
Shutting things down is the number one thing, though.
Yeah.
That's number one thing. Number one thing was like shutting things down and getting ready for the new year is where we are.
Yeah.
So this is different because, normally we have like a little bit of banter, and there is some banter involved, with the new year upon us. Here's what I started doing.
Okay.
I don't do resolutions, I do aspirations. Right?
Mhm.
And I always pick a word or a phrase for the year.
Mm.
Myself together. This year, I've already picked it for 2025. It is be grateful.
Mhm.
It is like we're gonna give thanks every single day. But I also had this thought in terms of aspirations. It's more of a wish. I wish, I know this is awful. I really wish that people would stop hiding their hate behind religion, organized religion.
Yeah.
It's a child's wish, right? I don't need world peace right now. I need people to say what they want to say with their chest, and
Yeah.
stop using religion as a way of passing on your hate.
Yeah.
Excusing
Be
it.
authentic.
Be authentic.
Own your actions, own your beliefs. That's the only way we can start addressing or figuring out together what the new way forward is. I feel that.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
like the people that were a little bit more aggressively homophobic, which I know sounds insane, but I just remember I was sitting in this PTA meeting and this guy went off. And when I said I had a wife, and I was like, and then immediately he saw my face, like I was kind of like, and he's like, no, 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 no. And it was, and then we kind of like worked it through and actually became friends with him and his family. But we couldn't get there without him showing up in his ignorance.
Really?
Like that was step one, was he had to be ignorant in front of someone so that we could actually talk about it.
Huh.
And so I don't know. I feel like, you can't actually realize how ignorant you sound until you say it out loud. And people are so much more afraid of saying things than they are of doing things, right? I don't want to get told I'm wrong, but I'll do something harmful if I can like do it privately. Like,
well, we talk about these type circles. People, I bring up John Gruden every single time. Somebody got upset with him and released all of his emails and things. But up until that point, he had a very safe circle where he could say all those disgusting things without any care in the world because everybody in the circle agreed with him.
yeah, it's a little echo chamber. So I celebrate the Celtic New Year in November
Oh, okay.
1st. So I follow that. It's a Samhain, and I set my intentions at that time for my year. And it's interesting for me because I like the feeling of the larger New Year experience. Like there's something kind of sweet to being part of a group. And obviously my little Samhain thing's a little bit less that, but I hear you on not trying to create some sort of resolutions for, really set your intentions, set your aspirations, and live as much into it as you can.
Well, with that, let's get us some theme music so we can get into some of these appetizers. So as I'm sitting there doing a little jingle, I thought to myself, you know what? 2025 may very well be the year where a lot of people are going to feel uncomfortable because it's almost as if we're at this crossroads of having some very necessary conversations.
Yeah.
I believe we are there. Like it feels like a tidal wave. You know what I mean? You know how
Yeah.
things are just like sort of building up like a volcano, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about to
Yep.
erupt. I just have this weird feeling. There's gonna be a lot of conversations in 2025. That's just
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a lot of folks, I think, that they're going to have the option to make a choice. I said, like, I'll go back to my experiences coming out, right? Like, when you come out to someone, they have to make a choice as whether or not to believe all the propaganda they've heard about what it means to be gay, or to remember how they've known you in your life.
mm, mm,
And it's a vulnerable and scary moment for the person, and it can be, disappointing on many levels. However, I feel like before that, when you're in the closet, people can suspect, but
mhm.
they can kind of like pretend, like they can hide from themselves, escape by. And I feel like the ability to hide from things is being very aggressively put forward as no longer an option for folks that are
Yeah.
wanting to commit, and running into like, oh, wait a minute, you're gonna have to face this. I think you're right. I think those hard conversations where you have to be
Mhm,
vulnerable, figure out, like we were talking about earlier, be okay with being wrong or saying something ignorant, so that you can
mhm.
learn how to do better and show up in the way that you actually want to show up, instead of, as we talked about before, being performative in how you show up.
Yes. Yeah, I was telling one of my Monday messages a few weeks back was no safe harbor for hate.
Hmm.
I mean, is this, and it kind of stems into what we're going to talk about today. Like, we have this way of saying things and thinking, oh, well, that's a nice compliment. It's not a compliment. Or this is my opinion. It's not opinion. That's hate. Okay.
Hmm.
We are at a place of calling spades a spade.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's I'm almost speechless, honestly. Almost speechless. It's interesting to watch happen in real time,
Hmm.
because for so long there was this unspoken acceptance of being ignorant and
Hmm.
pretending that's not really happening. You're just We are past that. Like, there is clearly generations of people across the board who are past the place of we are going to feign like we don't know what's happening. We're past it. And
Yeah.
so you get to a place of you're going to have to pick a team. There are
Yeah.
people who have been playing both sides. Like, there is nothing more racist than someone saying, "I don't see color." That's fucking racist. Actually, it's worse.
Hmm.
Worse than, which we'll have to put it on the dinner table, put it on the menu. Um, because that, I mean, like,
We're gonna have a very long menu.
we have a very long menu.
I love it.
Because there are folks who are like, well, isn't that better? It's not better. It's worse than. It's
Hmm.
worse than. We're not going to talk about it here, but there have been people who have played both sides. Like, well,
Yeah.
I don't want to be here, and I don't want to go there. So I'm going to hang out over here and just say, well, I'm mutual. There, no, no,
Yeah.
we are past it. So there are going to be a lot of people who are going to start feeling some kind of way. And so we come here today because our dear, I'm going to be facetious here, our dear friend Gwyneth Paltrow. I appreciate Gwyneth. I really do. I appreciate her because sometimes, you know, I appreciate her saying what she means to say. Does she ever learn from it? I don't know if she learns in that, but I appreciate her putting all her bullshit out there. Like, I'm just going to say it because I feel like this is it. It's like, yeah, that's a no. But that's okay. Maybe she learns, maybe she doesn't. I'm not concerned either way.
Yeah.
I like to see her being vulnerable and putting it out there, and then maybe saying, okay, let me go back and rethink what I just said. Right? Like, I know for myself, I will tell people, work with me here. I'm trying to understand something. So when I say this, just work with me, because I it's a very good chance I'm like, am I on the line? I think I'm on the line. But if
Hmm.
I am, please tell me I'm on the line. Right? Because I
Mhm.
want to do better. I want
Right.
to do
You
better.
want to learn.
I want to learn.
Yes.
So go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I disagree. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know if I haven't actually followed her to know whether she learns or not. And it's, I think it is, like I said at the beginning, like, I think it's helpful when people can express what their questions are, their ignorance, and then actually take a step back and be like, oh, that was wrong. Or
Right.
I realized that, like, that feels like if we had a little bit more of that, we might be in a slightly different place.
Yeah. Woo. So I have this grand idea of what to serve up in 2025. Man, we our dinner menu, it is chock full. But in her making this comment, and we're going to share with you guys, here's how I sum it up. So let's talk about today's topic. The misguided celebration of Black trauma. Now, I'm using Black trauma in a large scope here. Okay. Large scope. But here's her comment. And again, we live and learn. But she says, my Black women friends know themselves, love themselves in a way that I think white women are not taught to. Okay. So, now some people were like, oh my God, that's so amazing, Gwyneth. Oh my God, that's so amazing. No. I was like, I had to take a long sigh. I did. I took a real long sigh. Like, that's that bullshit again. Mm-hmm. That's where I went immediately. Before I share some of the comments, did you have any immediate thoughts when I shared it with you?
Well, so what's interesting to me is obviously I had to learn about Blackness. I don't know if you noticed, but like I got this going on, right? And I know there was a time that I would have thought, oh, that's so cool that, like, she's seeing and valuing this in the world. And the thing that we're talking about earlier, the subtle way that it celebrates trauma, I think there's a way to celebrate people for, and you could correct me on this, obviously, but my own experience of my thing is like, yeah, it's great. Go ahead and celebrate that. My friend calls me a trauma cockroach. She's like, you go through stuff and you always manage to get through stuff that I can't even imagine people getting through and land on your feet. And I'm like, I get, on the one hand, cool, but why did I have to? Right. And yeah, like, I'm glad that I'm here, that I had the strength and the creativity and the fortitude to be here. And I guess I want to be able to celebrate that, but I don't want that to be the first thing someone else decides is true about me. And I didn't really, before I went through my own de-ignorancing, and like I would have heard that and not seen the subtle racism in that, mm-hmm. and dismissal of what Black women specifically have to do in order to succeed and to just survive. And that it's not a compliment, because it's an acceptance of the problem. Mm. It puts the focus on Black women or Black people instead of on the system that is destructive and creates that ignorance. So my first reaction was, gosh, that sucks that we're still there. That's someone that famous, and I would hope able to access education, right, is putting it out there. And to your other point, it's good that she is, so it could be corrected, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I don't follow Gwyneth to say, oh my gosh, she's learned. This is like, okay. Yeah. But she always gives you something to talk about. So I appreciate her for that.
Right, there you
go. Never falls short there. She's always something to talk about. So here are some of the comments that were shared. Yeah. It was this ain't it. She knows very well why we are as strong as we are. It's called racism. Trust me, we prefer being in a perpetual state of softness where we are always believed and protected, but alas, here we are. And of course, we blocked out the people's names because, another response, that's because there was no need. White women were never oppressed. Okay. We've got white women get white privilege right out of the gate. Everyone else loves a white woman. Who loved Black women from the beginning? We had to learn to love ourselves. Let me just take a quick step back on this one real quick. And I know that, I didn't bring the study here, but I am certain if you're watching this, you have all more than likely heard or seen the study done with the Black child and the two baby dolls, the white one and the Black one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see these kind of comments and you see people, like, I know for myself, being in the workplace, people will say, "Oh, Gwendolyn, you're so strong." First of all, I am not strong. I'm not some fucking ox, right? I'm not some mule.
Yeah.
Resilient, yes. Do I have have things that help me get through? Yes. But it's the certain use of words that you have to be careful of accepting, because then it becomes, oh, well, she can take it because of blah, blah, and blah. Right? And I think to myself, and we are going to talk about it, like, we're going to talk about colorism here. So just trust, we got a full menu for you. But I'm not fair skinned. I'm in the middle on the chocolate scale. But even being in the middle, the images shown to you from day one of what is defined as being beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot. I mean, even as a kid, I got picked on for, having 4 eyes, for having the nose I have, for the type of hair I had, for the skin color. Like, there are all these things that tell you you are not worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't look like this, what's the point of being around? That you find yourself getting caught up in trying to match something that will never happen. And so you have to have parents. As I mentioned, our parents were very clear in giving us daily affirmations to say there is nothing wrong with you, because the world is going to tell your child all of the things that are wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
And will pretty much beat it into them in school, media, social circles, this constant message. Now, we only had magazines and like cable when I was growing up.
Yeah.
These kids now have social media and videos, and there's all these visual images 24/7 that tell girls and boys how they don't measure up from like day one. It's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot. And it's a constant barrage. They did a study, it was in the early 2000s, I want to say, where American television got into the Philippines. And within 2 years, they started having anorexia, which they had never had before in young girls. Like, our media images are so toxic.
Yes.
They cause a lot of problems. And then when you add the social political structure, which is and this my genuine question of like how to both acknowledge like the level of like personal and communal and familial investment or resilience that it takes to be here and thrive, while also not celebrating trauma. Because I don't want to diminish that either. Like, I feel like it's not a given. There are a lot of people that don't make it.
Yeah, I mean, I know, right? And it's a hard one. It is a hard one. Let me get into the few more comments,
Sure.
and then we are going to dive deeper into that. Another one was like, we love ourselves so fiercely because the world hates us. White women are so loved by the world, they don't have to do the inner work. All right, let me pause here real quick. Hold up. Maybe we're going to have a couple of moments of going through these comments. Okay, so here's the deal. Real talk. I can just recall, if you just even think about the stereotypes of the angry Black woman, and Black women are hard to love, and you can't do with Black women, and Black women can't do. There's all of this stuff. Yet and still, they had Black women raising a whole hell of a lot of Black of white babies, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, I think about some of those older movies, but like, oh, I had a mammy, and my mammy loved me, and I'm like, oh my God, why? But that's where we were, so I just, you know, you roll with it.
Mhm.
And even now, there are a number of persons who have Black women in their homes raising their white kids.
Mhm.
But so how can we not be, you know, so hard to love, but yet and still you want this for your, because it's just, I don't know what innate, I don't know.
I mean, I have some theories. I guess I think about like growing up in white culture and the emotional isolation that exists, like the ways in which white communities are not encouraged, right? Like white women are not encouraged to build connection, right? Like their job is to serve the patriarchy, it is to serve white supremacy.
Mm,
And there is in my observation, and I don't think I'm alone in this, there's a cultivated isolation. And so there's a yearning for connection and a fear of it. It's often
mm,
used there's a vulnerability is often punished.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's really gross. And that, like, they talk about competitiveness, but it's um and I'm not, no poor me stuff here, just
No.
recognizing that the system is itself very well designed to create that, isolation that helps with the whole process of exploitation.
Mm,
And I feel like maybe one of the reasons that we have, some of those white children, especially in places of privilege, that have some sense of humanity is because there were Black women that chose or were forced to raise them, but chose then to still be kind. They chose
mm.
kindness in the face of that. Um, and I don't know, like it's a when you look at it in that place of um there's so many women that I know that express deep loneliness, white women, isolation and loneliness, because they don't know how to make friends. And that's the other thing I guess I see in Gwyneth Paltrow's um comment, is that it's not just that white women aren't taught that, they're cultivated to harm other women and themselves in the service of this larger structure.
That is, that's interesting. I do recall in my workforce days that there were people who would, well, white women who would make comments like that, and I didn't get it. Like I didn't get it because again,
Yeah.
we are coming from two different places.
Mhm.
Whereas, the women that, let me back up. Let me go back a little further back in my history. There was a young lady who became the manager of our store. She was a single kid, an only child, who had a Black nanny and
Oh,
reminded us every time at the lunch table. Oh, I had a Black nanny. She used to do this for us. And I'm thinking, I don't want to hear your mammy stories. Like, I really don't. Like, I don't understand it. But she had this certain level of paranoia. One, she assumed all Black people hung together. Literally, the
hmm,
words came out of her mouth. I swear to God Almighty. I was like,
hmm.
are you serious right now? Because like because we all clearly look alike. We should all hang together too. I didn't even know half of my Black coworkers. That was just,
Mhm.
I was like,
You'll go you go to your Black hangout space
I
together.
know. I was
We're all
like,
friends.
what? So there was that, and she was just always like, she was extremely paranoid and not secure in herself. That when we started doing things to grow, like any good leader knows that if your team looks good, you look even better.
Mhm,
That's how she works. Like she had a really hard time connecting with people and understanding people and just trying to get that, like a simple human vibe going.
mhm,
And I thought to myself, this chick is crazy. Like I really thought it. So much so that she would come in. She had a guy she was dating, didn't work out. She came on hell on wheels, like literally riding her broom, wanted to
hmm.
fire people, saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And I thought, who operates like this? Like I just don't get it. I just did not understand at all. And couldn't wrap my arms around it. But after there was a little kerfuffle, let's just say it like that. So I thought, well, since she believes we all hang out together, then I got with all the other Black people say we should go hang out together because clearly that's happening. So
right, so yeah,
we might as well do it since she believes it's happening. But it was I didn't get it. So fast forward to where you get to some of these places, and there is a sort of unspoken something that happens. It's not between all Black people, right? It's just not. All skin folk and kinfolk, as we say. It's just not. But I noticed there were people who would make comments about some of the circles that were there and the bond that was there, and they want to be part of it so bad. And I thought, I don't know what you're looking at or what you are romanticizing. I didn't get it. Like I didn't, and no one could actually like verbalize it. But they would say, wow, you guys always like hang out together. You guys are so close and doing stuff. And we had, was there a code language? Yeah, we had our own code language. I'm not going to lie about it. We would have our own way of making like certain faces and eye contact. You're like, But it could be just a matter of having the same experiences as Black women in the workplace. That's what brought us together.
That does, that happens, right? Like when you are in the minority and you're oppressed, because some people don't know it, then there's a human response to watch out for each other, and there's also, I think, I do legitimately, and obviously generalizations are dangerous, but I do legitimately feel like my observation is that the better that you are at sort of fitting into white culture, the worse you are at connecting with other humans in a very human way. Ooh. And I because I think that's the cost of it. And I think some people don't realize there's another option. And they also romanticize it, right? Like, I think we've talked about it before. I think part of why we have so many narcissists is a lot of people confuse attention for connection because they don't really know how to be vulnerable to create connection. So they instead seek a lot of attention. And that's, it's like sugar. It's a fast high, but it doesn't actually create anything durable because you have to be able to be uncomfortable. You have to be able to be ignorant and learn. You have to be able to correct and be corrected around stuff and sit in a conversation or sit in a situation and realize like, whoa, I messed up and I have to take responsibility. And those are all very different skills for people who are worshiping in the altar of white supremacy and looking for perfectionism and dominance and exploitation, right? Like they're not compatible.
Well, that's well said. Because I think about like this morning, there is like I talked to just about everybody on my morning walk. When I'm towards the end, I kind of stop talking because I'm like towards the end. But there's this one lady, Caucasian, and she never seems to smile. And I'm just like, do you never smile? Now, Gwendolyn says hello to everybody. You would think I would stop saying hello to her. I don't. I'm like, good morning. Good morning. I'm just.
I love that about you.
I just keep doing it. Like, I'm gonna keep doing this, sis. But then I see these other Black women who are out there doing their thing, and it's the same sort of like, hey, how's it going? Hey, I'm doing pretty good. It's like I didn't see you yesterday. Oh yeah, I was working. Like, there's just a sort of communal thing. And it's not just the Black women. I believe if you are open to talking to other people as humans, then you will find that. So there are other people. There are white men, there are Middle Eastern men and women, people who are Hispanic, every single person on that path. I'm like, good morning. Like, hey, haven't seen you. It's like, yeah, I was out. But it's, if that's what you're open to, like no one's coming to get you. Calm down.
Yeah.
Well,
we have to do more of that. Like the real, we've talked about it before, but the online world has taken a lot of our social energy and it doesn't give us the same social feedback.
Yes.
And so you're like, I realized that a few years ago that I need to put the effort in. And it can be a little scary when you haven't been interacting with people and you haven't been saying hello. You're like, oh, and going on walks with your dog, saying hello to people, getting to know your neighbors.
Right.
You have to push past that resistance, but we're not used to that social feedback because we do so much online, and it can feel at first a little trepidatious, and it's worth it. I feel like it's totally worth it. And I strongly encourage people on a regular basis. And I do the same thing. But I also was that way when I was a kid. I grew up in New England, and people there do not smile. And I remember I'd stand waiting for my mom to pick me up at the mall, and I would say hello and smile to everybody that came by. And if I got 1 in 12 people to smile back, it was a win. It was so interesting to me. And I was like, what is this? Like,
Maybe
we're
she's
just sitting here.
maybe she's from the New England area, because I was like, lady, the least you could do is put a smile on your face. That's the least you could do.
Yeah, maybe she's New Englander.
I know, right? All right. We got some long ones here. Okay, so this one says white women get that validation from outside, from society, but then they get built up only to be torn down if they get too out of line, too sexual, too free, too angry, too combative, too full of themselves. Black women have to find it from within because they don't get that from the outside world. So Black women have a deeper foundation in spite of their oppression. White women have privilege, but still remain closer to the fire that is white male patriarchy. Someone else said, I sort of see what she is saying with an Olympic-sized room for interpretation. Basically, Black women must intentionally cultivate love for themselves by force or by fire because the world intentionally creates potholes for them to fall at every junction from birth. White women, on the other hand, get that love as a given, but it is fragile. It can be taken away in an instant. It's not theirs to do as they please with. It is given to them, not cultivated by them.
Yeah. And I think that is spot on.
Whoa, that was a mouthful, literally.
Yeah.
But it is spot on. And I mean, it is. When I look at some people from, again, I'm from the outside, right? But I'm watching younger people do stuff. And I remember having to coach some of my team who are younger. They could have been my own babies, but they were so set on doing what their parents wanted. I was like, but if you're not happy, why are you doing it? And it was the whole idea of being ostracized. Like, I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to lose this. And I'm like, but you're not. So you'd much rather be miserable than, And I remember after my cousin died, he was 35 years old, died young, and it hit me. And I went on this streak of living life to the fullest because this is it. Every day is a new day to get out there and do something, right? And I had people saying, wow, I just admire you and your gusto. You just go out and you do things. And I was like, well, you can do it too. And they're like, not so much. And I'm thinking, well, what's stopping you? I'm not understanding what is stopping you. But this sort of unspoken fear of being ostracized, of being an other. And I was like, well, shit, I don't know nothing else but. Like, this is all I know. Right? Like, this is it. And it is true that, yes, you come into this world as a Black child, and the world, like, by the time at this point that you're 6 years old, you're a threat to people. Like, you're still kind of cute, but that cuteness sort of, it starts to like wander off, and they're like, now you're 10. Now there's a Black man who could be stealing from my house. It's like, cut it out. That's a child.
Yeah.
It is a child, but not treated as such. Not treated as such.
How much of it is, you think that, I don't know, like, it's one, I think I've told you about aphantasia. So like the visual coding doesn't work on me. So like that I'm always curious about it. Do you think people just get so conditioned to seeing what isn't there that because if you see a child, you're like, that's a child. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Is it, or because that part of, I was like, is there, and this is a bigger question than we can ever answer, because if we could answer it, everything would be different. But like,
well, if I would love to say that any person should be able to see a child and treat a child appropriately. Yet I think about a few summers ago where there was a mother and her kids. The wrong car was stopped. They took this mother and her kids, one was like a baby, and had them on the hot concrete on the ground.
Yeah.
It's like you clearly do not value the life of Black persons, that you would treat a baby, one is a baby, the others are clearly kids, as if they are threats to your life, and have them on the ground with their arms behind their back. These are babies.
Yeah, it's just a massive dehumanization. And
but you know, it's like, so I would like to believe, but there are some people, and I'm gonna go ahead and quote, I love Trading Places. I love it. Right? With with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. I love it. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. But there is a line in there that says, "Well, do you think something's wrong with him?" He's like, of course something's wrong with him. He's a Negro. He's probably been stealing since he could crawl. Now, I laugh at it, right? But I also recognize that there are people who truly feel that way. They believe that shit. They believe it.
Yeah.
And when they meet young Black children that are well-behaved and well-mannered, well, aren't you well-behaved? Well, look at you, aren't you? Like, don't you have just, it's like, you're not raising fucking heathens. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you serious right now?
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, you don't get it. But as a parent, you're like, I know this heifer just didn't say what I think she said to my baby. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But it's those snide remarks. People believe that. They believe it. The same way that when I walk into space, well, aren't you so well-spoken and articulate? And I was like, ooh, let me just hold up. Let me, how do I want to respond? Do I want to respond to this right now? It's even worth my time responding. Really? Because I've had it where I've had customers who rave about the service, tell their family and friends to come in. And I admit, I told you, my voice over the phone, I don't have a lot of bass. I don't have a lot of bass over here. So when people are talking, they're just talking. And then when they come in, they're like, oh shit, she's a Black woman. What the hell? Yes. I have seen that face far too often. And I kind of want to say, oh, you thought I was somebody who's Caucasian. I'm sorry. I like, he's like, oh, you're Gwendolyn. It's like, yeah, your dad told me about you. Great to meet you. He's like, yeah. I'm like, you weren't expecting this face. I know, it's okay. You can tell me. Your face is already saying it. Yeah. So no, I would like to believe, but I'm not crazy. I know how. I know that there is a lack of care and concern for Black bodies in the story. Like, that's where it is. So yes, as Black women, as a Black child, you know, you have, hopefully, you have parents, you have a village, you have a community that lets you know from the jump there is nothing wrong with you, because the world is telling you in commercials and everything else that you're less than. And that, again, like I tell people all the time, and we can talk about it. I know I have plans to talk about it. But I don't get imposter syndrome. I'm not the fucking fraud here. Like, not even close. If you think about, I mean, I'm just saying, if you think about how Black women, let's just stick with that, have to perform 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times more. And even still, it's not enough. Why would I ever be the person who's fraud? Seriously, kid? Really?
Well said.
Would never.
On point. But
there are people, and again, this is a separate conversation, people who love to grab onto that idea to sort of find some sort of connection with. It's like, I'm not connected to that shit. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
Well, do you think it's a connection thing, or do you think it's like a virtue signal? Like, I'm not one of the bad guys. Like, I'm not one of those, like it's the whole, like, we'd rather look good than be good. Or I guess I'd rather say, like, we'd rather look good than do good, because I'm not sure I believe in the good bad person thing. But
you know, people find ways to connect to some really weird things. You know, but like, oh my God, I felt that way too, because the two Caucasian women who created this study, and it was not a syndrome, right? It was just, hey, have you noticed that when we get into certain spaces as white women, we feel XYZ way? They're like, yeah. And then some other person, probably a man, so go ahead and call it, said, you know what, that's a syndrome. And you're suffering from that syndrome. It's like, but it had nothing to do with us. Like
Right.
these were two white women, ain't shit to do with not one. And they studied other white women. So, okay. So now I was like, but there are people like, I have that same problem. You have it too? Oh my God, we're connected. No, we're not. We're not connected. No, we're not.
Yeah, the connection is that there's a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. It's not it's that centering the person instead of seeing the problem.
Yes. So it's like,
and yeah.
But to go back to those comments, I can see where like I do have some, like I said, I have some white friends. I know
So your good friends are white.
I do know of some pretty bold white women who were, if you will, ostracized because of their boldness. So I get it. I do understand on that point some of the deals of some of this is given to you and can be easily taken away from you if you get out of line. Which is why,
and that's the threat, right? Like
that's the threat.
Which isn't to say that but there's no safety. It's the whole your silence will not protect you scenario. Like you can sit here and say nothing and watch people get destroyed, or you can risk your actually fragile, non-existent safety and be part of addressing the real problem and working with the people who are at risk.
So when I was putting together this presentation, I was like, let me see what comes up. So I used Canva to put it together. And so I'm going to start with women and beauty, right? Because a lot of this deal of self-love and loving yourself and loving your fellow woman, whatever, it does start with what's physical. It starts here first, and then you can work on all the insides. So I said, let me see what Canva believes is beauty. So I just put in beauty is what I put in. And this is the very first image that came up. And I was like, okay, so, she doesn't have blonde hair. Surprise, surprise. But I thought, that's the typical definition when we talk about beauty.
Yeah.
Right. And there were multiple stock photos and videos that look like that.
Yeah.
Multiple. So I was like, okay. Now there was another image in there. There was another image of when it came to beauty, and it was this young lady. I thought, okay, well, this is kind of cute. It's also a little European in nature. Not gonna lie about it, right? Because if we, and clearly again, we don't have the time today, but we have a full menu for all of you people out there, a full menu where we want to talk about, that proximity to whiteness. Right? When people, and today isn't the day to talk about Black hair, okay? But we know that if your hair is relaxed, right, if it's a little close to the European version of hair, you are far more accepted and seen as safe, right? Because you're not, you come in here with your afros and stuff, your cornrows, your braids. Now they're thinking, oh, she's a little militant. She may be too Black for the room. Let's just go ahead and call it. That may be the issue. All right. that was definitely there. I know when I was younger, I wore my braids and my cornrows to work. I had my little mini afro, as a matter of fact, as well. Oh, wait a minute. Why? I don't know why my screen, my camera is not focused on me. So we'll have to figure that out. But yeah, so I thought, okay, that's interesting in terms of beauty. It also went to this image. All right. Now, this young lady, I thought, okay, but she's what I have termed now as someone who is racially ambiguous. You can't tell, is she Black? Is she Asian? Is she Hispanic? And it's extremely safe, especially in commercials. Extremely safe. You're like, I want to show somebody who's melanated, but I don't want to come out the bucket. Do you remember that commercial from Cheerios years ago where it was the white father and the biracial child and her Black mama? She was kind of medium cocoa. They had a hot mess over this biracial child and her white father. eating Cheerios. They were upset.
Hmm.
And there was this whole slew of commercials with biracial couples, but they were fairly racially ambiguous. Like really, they all had the same look. They literally, all these people looked like this. Where they were like a little fair skin, they had soft curly hair, and it was just, I thought to myself, y'all do know that that's not everybody, right? Like Halle Berry has a white mother, right? You know, like there are people who all don't look like Mariah Carey. You know, it wasn't until a little bit later where they had a few commercials that had a very Black woman with a very white man. It took them a little while to get there. But when I put in Black beauty, funny enough, it was not a Black woman who came up first.
Really?
I know. You know what I got? I got a black cat. I got a black cat. But I found this. Now, this picture I found deep. She was further down in the list when I put in Black beauty. Further down in the list. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Right? There was not one, there were a number of Black cats that came up first. I thought, okay, whatever. Representation, right? Representation. So even in Canva, and I know they're out of Australia?
I think so, yeah.
So I get it. I get that when people want to represent Black people, they want to go with something that is still very, oh, that's interesting. That
Is it me?
is different. That was interesting.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about, but I think I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
I see you now. You were, and now you aren't. But is it you?
Oh my God, there's always something. There's always something. Okay,
always
so
something.
I was like, wait a minute, what happened here? I completely lost my mind there. But no, so there are often people who think about, you know, in terms of being moving forward. I think about President Obama, and I believe he was well qualified. I think it was great. However, I do believe that his being biracial made it easily acceptable by some people. Right? I don't believe if he had been, and God, please forgive me when I say this, a black man, I don't know if he would have gotten that office. I gotta say that.
Yeah. No, there's definitely because white supremacy brings in hierarchy. It's just the way it is. It's not about equity in any way, which is why, never mind. We don't have to get into that. That is a whole other show.
I know either.
but yeah, it is, and it's hard to, because I will say the other thing that I think we're fighting is that this idea of meritocracy has been so pounded into our brains that you know, people rise by merit in the society, that that indoctrination is something we really have to fight. I think actually actively fight in ourselves and in others. And I think that the people that are the least white coated, right, they see it for what it is way earlier, right? Because they're like, wait a minute, I'm doing a great job and my merit's not taking me anywhere. And so I think that that's another piece of it when we talk about the ways it's very insidious, because it seems like such a great ideal. Yeah, you're gonna rise by merit. Well, yeah, merit, and also this other stuff that we're not going to talk about. Right. And then the people that are successful are used as reasons to believe in it. So like one person rises up, gets, you know, President Obama. Now suddenly, well, obviously there's no such thing as inequity. It's just, but it's not because there is no such thing as inequity. It's because he was able to leverage things. And, you know, let's not ignore it. Yeah, he put in the work, but lots of people put in the work and get nowhere. And so that reality is the success stories are used to deny the reality of inequity instead of used as ways to open up more pathways for success. It's a very effective system of oppression. They built it to last. I don't know.
Well, you got that part right. I mean, you definitely, it is built to last.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I was sitting here thinking to myself, we talk about merits and earning your spot. And if we just look at a good host of these latest cabinet selections, it was like, you can't get any more mediocre than this. Like, you can't. And yet, and still, you're thriving.
Yeah, you're thriving. Well, and the other part of it is that we are conditioned. If you're not in that very select group, and as you get down fewer, you're conditioned to oppress yourself, like the mental gymnastics that exist. And I think that's to go back to the Black women don't have the luxury of believing the lies. They really don't. Like when you talk about that trauma, they don't. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I was going to articulate this for people that don't know it. So if you don't have the luxury of believing the lies, then you have to learn how to validate yourself. You have to learn how to take care of you love yourself and your family. But the rest of us, we have the luxury of believing the lies. We have the luxury of thinking that it's a meritocracy. And so we can buy into this, and then we can create our self-oppression. And we can live there and say we have imposter syndrome or whatever that is, because it's easier to live in that space because we've bought the lie that this is a meritocracy, that if we work hard enough, we'll be successful, because there's just enough of it that applies to us that it's possible. And then I feel like that, and it's part of, once again, this perpetual, oppression machine that we're in, that then divides us from each other in order to actually build the community necessary to create real change together, to actually be part of the solution. Because as long as we're willing to risk the fragile and unreal safety that we've bought into, we're not actually going to create genuine security for everybody.
I agree with that completely. I mean, I was just, when you mentioned how there are a few of the few success stories, I remember a young man when I was in high school who pretty much said in so many words that he couldn't get certainties because of affirmative action. And I thought, what? And it was a whole deal of, I've worked hard, I've done this, I've done that, and yet somebody else got my spot. And I thought, wow, must be nice that you believe someone got your spot, that someone else couldn't be smarter than you.
Yep. You're entitled to that spot because
you're
the right color of mediocre.
Right.
The right gender and color of mediocre. So you deserve that spot.
That was my spot, damn it. It's awful. Yeah. I thought, what? And it was like that was that first sort of conversation around, you're only getting someplace because you only got that because, and it's, you can easily, even as a Black person, you can fall into that thinking of, I got this because I'm the so-and-so. Did I ever feel as if I was a token Negro once or twice? I will say yes. I did feel that way once or twice. Most certainly did. And I thought, okay. And it's a weird spot too, because on the one hand, you are fully aware that you are capable and more than qualified. And on the other hand, you think to yourself, you're only here because they need somebody who looks like you. And at the end of the day, you're kind of like, am I going to turn this down? Because it could be because of the latter and not the fact that I'm qualified? Or do I decide to play the game and ride this wave until I can't ride it? It's a hard spot to be in. It is a hard spot. You have to navigate the waters the way that you navigate them. You know, it's an ugly place to be, but it's the reality for a number of, I believe, for a number of Black women. It's the reality for where we are. And I'm just like, ugh. But that self-love and people, I remember I went through a redefining period, as I believe I've told you about it. And
Yes, you did.
I gave myself these daily affirmations that when people said stuff, I corrected them. They're like, oh my God, G, you're so cute. It's like, G is cute every day. And, like, oh. And it got to the place where people were like, why not just say thank you? I'm not thanking you for shit that I already know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need that. So it was at least a good 3 to 5 year period of me like saying it, because I had to tell myself every single day, you are beautiful and you are attractive and smart and witty and intelligent. And you don't need someone's acknowledgement of that to have it.
Real. Yeah.
No, I don't need it. So yeah, I tell folks I'm cute every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a cute this. Is like, okay.
Like, I choose it.
I mean, like but people were waiting for the thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not giving you shit. No, I already know it. Now you know it too. Go tell everybody else how cute I am. So
and
this level of confidence.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to cut you off, but you just made me think of something like that. The tokenizing, I think that's where it is someone wants something from you.
Yes.
They want you to feel special because of their acknowledgement, right? And there's a woman I was close to here in Denver she's a Black woman, and she got a C-suite position at a large company. And it was around like diversity, inclusion, HR stuff. And she and I met after she'd been there for about a year. And she's like, I'm not sure what to do. Like, she knew that they brought her in because they wanted that, representation. We'll start there. And but her attitude, and I think would have been similar to you, was, all right, now I'm here, I'm going to open the way for others. So she's trying to do mentorship programs, and they're just blocking. And she realized, and they kept trying to make her feel special. No, you got here because that's the other game they play, right? Like, you're special so that you then sort of block other people. And she's like not having any of it. And so she finally obviously left because she realized that it was, and I think that's like that. That's the thing that you can watch for is if they're invited into a space and then prevented from providing that access to others and tried to like make it into something about how you're different. You're not like other women. You're not like other Black women, whatever it is. It's like, oh no, that's not how this goes at all. I don't owe you shit. I owe them and I owe this group more, right? Like, you don't get to tell me that I'm special. You don't get to tell me how I'm in charge of that. And I feel like that's the secret thing they're doing right there is they're trying to get you to give them that power over you.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And lucky for me, I was put in a position where I could lift other people up and promote other people. So I recognized in that moment, okay, I'm not the token, but there was, like your gut knows. Yeah. When they are purposely putting you in places to say, oh, look at this. You're like, that feels awful, but I'm going to go ahead and, but I will make it work in my favor. Right. Like, we just won't be this sort of, but I go back to her original thought. And yes, there are a lot of Black women, even right now, as we wrap up our dinner here, there are people who absolutely, I believe, I'm going to call it, I just think they're just fucking jealous. And I know that sounds awful, but I'm going to say it. I've never seen people who stalk others' social media posts just to come in because they're just miserable. Again, it goes back to how dare you be so happy and so joyful being the person you are in the body you're in. How dare you? Yeah. Like the idea that there is a wine titled Black Girl Magic Wines. By the McBride sisters. Now they have different brands, right? That's just one of the brands. And it's that whole idea of how dare they? Like how dare you come into this space? How dare you? And it's like, you have to be really miserable. But then I thought to myself, because I'm getting ready to get on the beach and I am getting my SPF, right? Because the sun does not discriminate. The sun is like, look, I don't care what you are. I'm burning all you bitches, right? So
Be like the sun.
the sun is like you and you and you, right? But you see these tanning lotions to be darker.
Mhm.
And so you see people who spend money and hours in tanning salons. You want the rhythm, you don't want the blues that come with this brown skin.
Mhm.
I mean, like you just, you go and get the butt injections, the lip injections, and all this other bullshit, but you don't really
Yep.
want what comes with looking like this. You don't really want that smoke. You don't want
Mhm.
that 24-hour smoke. You don't want that smoke.
Yep. And that's what makes it offensive.
That's what makes it offensive. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. No, I'm not saying I don't know. Have I ever met a few women in my workspace when I was out and about and what have you, who said some things and kind of had some comments? I was like, I'm gonna say yes. I was like,
Mhm.
is she jealous? Like, you want to be me? Okay, that's cool. I mean, I am cute and shit, so
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know,
they
and
want,
then
like you said, they want the confidence, but
yeah,
they want the self-love, but they
yes,
don't want they don't wanna have to go through what you went through
mhm,
for it,
no,
and that's just the facts.
that's the facts. Yeah. Yeah. We, of course, are going to investigate this more. I don't, I'm trying to understand. I mean, I'm not moving like I normally do, but my camera's like, I don't want to focus on you today. I don't know what's going on back here. Like, it's just a
Mm.
monitor. I don't
Hmm.
understand, but it's okay. But guess what we have coming up? Because, it is. I know when this is going to air, so I probably shouldn't have put it in here now that I think about it.
This
Now
would
that
have
I
been
think
last
about it.
week, huh?
Yeah, I should have done it. I should have done it last week, but it's okay though. The good thing is you can always go back and watch that episode when when this
There you go.
episode is.
Now check it out.
If
You're
you
like, "Did
miss
you
it,
miss
you can watch it then.
something?"
With the replay for a reason. I was like, wait a minute, hold up. Where am I? I'm in the future. I'm in the future.
You told me about it. I just barely thought of that too, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, where is that?" So, I mean, time is a slippery concept, you
It,
know?
it is. What
It's a
is
slippery
time?
concept.
What is time? When you really stop and think about it, oh my god. The good thing is though, we do have a lot planned for this year.
Yep.
We are going to talk about white privilege.
Mhm.
I would like to dip into colorism after that.
Yeah.
And we could probably even attach to, well, no, it is by itself, that whole deal of not seeing color. People
Mhm.
who are colorblind, that should be a talk by itself as well.
Yep.
So like these are clearly conversations not safe for the dinner table, but they should be. And I believe that 2025, we're gonna have there's gonna be a lot of conversations.
Yep, and we have to have them. We have
We
to
have to
stop
have
shrinking
them.
back, and we have to learn
Yeah.
and grow as a people if we're gonna make any real difference. Thank you
Yes.
so much, G. I always appreciate the chance to chat with you and learn with you and from you.
I can't, whatever. Let me play this music. We gonna see y'all in a little bit.
Mhm.